BDR now provides missing FHIR features, and deliverables needed to meet CMS, HIPAA, GDPR, CCPA and other crucial regulations and flexibilities. BDR also opens FHIR up to data scientists and analysts to excel in their deliveries with the ability to have more flexibility in how they can access, use more sophisticated selection criteria and report on FHIR data no differently than most any other stored data. Why risk exposing unencrypted FHIR data? Allow the ability of patients to securely download their data, CMS mandated. Allow scientists to migrate data for analytics. A solution starts at $2,000 monthly. BDR FHIR Interceptors for FHIR Encrypts and Decrypts PHI and PII. The time for implementation to be up and producing is days to weeks. BDR's Spark, Java, Spring Boot framework and app integrates with FHIR's internal framework and server. In order for a qualified user to enter the BDR Data Privacy FHIR data migration application, they must have a user ID, password, and access to our two-factor authentication and key, as we have just viewed. BDR is tightly integrated with FHIR. You can even start and stop FHIR from the BDR interface, as we just started the FHIR server here. We are now showing an empty FHIR server with just a FHIR schema and no tables or data at this startup time. We have just submitted a BDR process that will take bundles of JSON data and migrate to be ingested into FHIR all in one process. We also allow for bulk bundle loading into FHIR. Here you are viewing the JSON content in one of the files being loaded into the FHIR repository. Notice it is not encrypted, though will be once loaded into FHIR. First, we are viewing the load data that went into FHIR's blob files and see that even the main data that FHIR uses for its processing in its and all blob data will be encrypted, as I stated earlier. Now we are showing that the PHI and PII in the FHIR data tables are also secured with a ES256 encryption, as seen in a few of FHIR's main tables. Even with the data tables and blobs encrypted, FHIR's Hapi's work business as usual, as we first request a single patient's information and then we submit a FHIR API by its URL, for all patients, and all the data was returned decrypted and useful to the users via the BDR's FHIR interceptors. Now we are establishing a connection to a FHIR repository to produce a report. We will display and allow like searching of resources and the fields within the resources. The user then selects the fields they desire in their report and optionally can add criteria like they would with an ETL tool, such as geographic areas, gender, name and so on. The user then selects to run the reporting process. These reports will be viewable on the BDR graphical interface, migratable to data lakes and even downloadable to iPhone, Androids, tablets and most any device with a browser, with no need for additional applications, yet adhere to BDR's end-to-end encryption. Here we are viewing the results of the report on the BDR graphical interface in a readable format, though the stored data maintains encryption. We are now showing that the actual system source of record for the data in the report and being viewed is and will retain its AES256 encryption where it is being stored, in this case Hadoop's HDFS. Now we will download the data to the user's server. The user will be prompted for a secure two-factor code in order to download this data. You will see later a video of the data downloaded to an iPhone. The data will maintain end-to-end encryption and protected with HTTPS, SSL and Crypto.js and more. Now the user can open the downloaded file and view their data or use it as they desire. This data again was downloaded securely and made available to the end user. Here we are showing that the system source of record of the reporting data stays encrypted to keep you and your company GDPR, CCPA, HIPAA and most every regulatory compliance. Now the user is optionally selecting to migrate the data in this report to a new table in a schema of their choice and running the process. As we just saw, this table name does not yet exist in the schema. Now with the process completed, we refresh the database schema and see the new table. Now we are opening the new table and as we see the data was written with a ES256 encryption. Next, based on the user's credentials, they may be allowed to decrypt the data for their use or have access to the BDR proxy to read encrypted data in motion in a decrypted mode. Now once again a user with the proper credentials may run another process to encrypt the data migrated to the new table in the schema.
Now onto our prior video processing and downloading FHIR data to an iPhone.
BDR FHIR streamlines end-to-end encryption with HTTPS and Encrypted for patient and analyst downloads and migrations for added protection. Now all servers, devices, iPhones/iPads, Androids, and all devices with a browser, receives the requested file securely, in motion, then ready for their use. Now the patient or analyst or any credentialed user enters their credentials to begin entering the BDR FHIR application. After a successful login, the user is prompted for a second authentication with their two-factor authentication application. Enter that code and if valid will then enter the BDR FHIR patient and analyst reporting, download and migration application. Now from the iPhone the user has selected the FHIR server parameters, preset by the administrator, to start selecting the resources and fields. Optionally with selection criteria. The user first selected the patient resource, added two fields and selected the criteria to view only information from Dallas. Next the user searches for columns with name in it and selects two more fields for the report. Now the user switches to the observation resource to select fields from there for their report and later migration to the Snowflake data lake. Now the user selects fields with the beginning of the word starting with subject. The user then adds two more fields for their report and clicks the run icon to run the process to create the selected report file. Now the user reviews the results of their selected report and after deciding if it is what they desired, they click on the download icon to securely download this report. The BDR app has yet another added security prompting the user for another two-factor authentication code for allowing the secured download of the report. After successfully adding the correct two-factor code, the user clicks the generate button that created an encryption code that will decrypt the securely encrypted report and transit to their device via the BDR Crypto.js security and decryption process for the report. Now the user selects the download icon that will start the secure process of downloading their requested report to their device. In this, no iPhone or other apps necessary to make the securely downloaded file viewable and usable by the patient, analyst or any authorized user. Here the user is now reviewing the downloaded data and has full control of its usage. BDR is a Spark, Java, Spring Boot framework. BDR's UI makes it easy for patients, analysts to select resources and fields for reporting and migration, for additional analysis. Class code is encrypted to secure against reverse engineering. Facilitates low latency backups with securely encrypted data for quick restores when held to ransomware attacks. Meet HIPAA, CMS, CCPA, GDPR, GRC. Regulations with AES 256 encryption, two-factor authentication and our secure proxy to simply read and access the encrypted data from e-commerce, websites and applications. Reach BDR at 847-440-4439 for more information.